Hey, Renter Retires, it's Adam Schroeder here with another episode, joined as usual by the founder and CEO of Renter Retirement, Zach Lemaster. And today we wanted to bring you a successfully unemployed investor. His name is Dustin Heiner. He's here to join us. So Dustin, thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I love real estate investing, and it's not necessarily like the investing itself is amazing. It's what it affords me to do in my life. Like I love renter retirement, the idea of being retired. And I came up with the word or the title successfully unemployed because when I told people I was retired at 37 years old, like, well, what do you do with your life? I'm like, well, I do plenty. In fact, I love working. I love building businesses. I just found a way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working that job, that just over broke job. But yeah, so, I just go to the gym in the morning, hang out with my family, come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. But it's a blessing to be a real estate investor.
Nice. So tell us, we always love to hear your first deal. How did you find it? What was it? And what about it made you get a second deal?
Yeah. So the first deal came in, actually started investing back in 2006 before the crash. And the first deal, I was living in California. And at the time, crazy prices on everything. Rents were somewhat low compared to the purchase price of the home. So I couldn't buy a house where I lived. I wanted to invest, I just couldn't. And so I looked in other states and I found Ohio of all places. And I started investing in Ohio, bought my first property there, but it didn't start that way. Like, in fact, my journey, I actually was exactly what everybody else does in their life. So we're all taught this in our lives. Basically, you go to school, you get good grades, and then you take those good grades, you go to college or university, get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt, and hopefully get a piece of paper that gives you a degree. And then you should take around that same piece of paper and shop around to companies and try to get a job. I call it a job. You're working just over broke, and hopefully you're going to get a quote unquote career there. Well, I'm doing that exact same thing. Work 40 plus years of your life and hopefully retire on what you managed to save that entire time. So I'm doing that. And so what happens is I actually get a job working at the local county government. Now, this local county government, I was doing IT, just same thing. I didn't even think about real estate investing, but I read a good book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Most of us have heard of it. It's a fantastic book, but it got me thinking, stop working for active income, start working for passive income, and start making money passively as opposed to working. And when I read that, I said, you know what? I want to invest in real estate. And so it was really, really, well, actually, let me share this quick story of what catapulted me or like shoved me into real estate investing. So I bought my first property in Ohio, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Was renting for, I think, $600 a month, maybe $650. So, this is 2006. So I bought that property, used my wife's money when we got married, like 6 months later. Hey, I want to invest in real estate. Can I take the money you saved?
In Ohio?
Exactly. Yeah. And then bought in Ohio. Praise the Lord, it started cash flowing. I realized I need to become an investor. Like, I need to do this, but you know how it happens. Life started getting in the way. So this is what happened. My wife and I started having children and job, and normal stuff of life, but I want to be an investor, but I just kind of took my eye off the ball. Well, this is what happened. Like, when my wife had our fourth child, she was just given birth and I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that good stuff. And well, I go home and after about 2 weeks, I go back to work. And in that week, I go back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? And I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. I said to myself, my goodness, why are they coming to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. So I immediately shook off any idea of being laid off or fired or anything. I said, no way. I work for the county government. I got the most stable, secure job ever anybody could ever have. And I do a great job. My bosses love me. So I shook off the idea of losing my job. I get up and I start walking down the hallway to my boss's office. And as I'm going, I remember before I went on paternity leave, there were some rumors or some rumbling going on. There could potentially be layoffs because the county was having trouble with funds. This is like 2008, 10, something like that. And as I go down the hallway is a rather short hallway, but every step I took, it got longer and longer and longer. It felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was just crushing down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. She says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And so I go and I sit down And she's kind of consoling me with her eyes and sheepishly grinning at me because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. Well, as I take my seat, I start thinking about my life. I start thinking about, if I lose my job right now, did I just waste my entire life? I've been here 12, 13 years doing this, and that whole path that I was told, did I just waste my life? And then I'm like, oh my goodness, we just had our 4th child. How am I going to feed my family? Am I a failure as a father? Am I a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine, a super nice lady, but she has a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you can absolutely tell her world has been just devastated. Well, my hands are all clammy, my forehead's all sweaty, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. I was the one. And so the reason why I tell the story is because this got me to wake me up. Well, I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down. I realize 2 things sitting there. First one, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. And so I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county, a different department, wasn't having issues. So check, got that. Last thing I thought, or I realized when I was sitting in a chair, I didn't make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I didn't make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I told myself, no longer would I ever tell anybody that my job was what I valued about myself. Because whenever we asked that question, what do? We would normally reply with our job. We're basically projecting the value that we put on ourselves to the world as being our job. That's what I did. And I realized no longer will I ever do that. I will now tell every single person that I am an investor. I invest in real estate. So fast forward the story, I started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250 or more in passive income. And I love generational wealth. I will literally give these properties to my kids. But after 30 plus properties, I'm like, my goodness, why am I working here? I'm losing money working at this job. And so last part of the story, I had plenty of properties coming in, or money coming in. I went to my new boss, good boss and all. I said, hey, boss, here's your layoff notice. I'm laying you off, jokingly. And we laughed a little bit. And he said, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate. It makes money for me without working. And now I literally don't have to work. And so I left my job for the very last time. And this walk to my car, I was in downtown. So I parked about at least a mile and a half away. I've taken this walk 1,000 times. And this walk, as opposed to that short hallway where my feet felt like lead bricks, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew.
Getting down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And here's really the crux of everything. Everybody needs to realize that if you're listening to this, you need to realize that you are not being paid what you are worth. You're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you're worth, they would go broke. And so what we need to do is now make sure that we're providing value for everybody else that we profit 100% on. And like I said, what I realized was that I needed to start becoming an investor. And now with all these properties, it's just a blessing to be able to be successfully unemployed. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions there.
That's fantastic, Dustin. And thank you so much for sharing that intimate story. Whether people can relate to having to go through that experience or are fearful of ever having to potential go through that experience. I mean, kind of what you realize the hard way is that, security, financial security and jobs are maybe not that secure, even in an area where you think security, like with the government, is something that is certain, and it was not. So you took control of your finances. You started investing in real estate. You didn't let that cripple you. You use that as an opportunity to look inside yourself and say, hey, I want more. I want more for my family, for my life, and I want control. So that's awesome. I think that's very relatable to a lot of our community of people that are looking to take control of their financial position, whether or not they're looking to actually just leave their job completely, or they want to rely less on that for retirement, whether they're looking to diversify their portfolio, create generational wealth long-term. I mean, there's all these reasons to invest in real estate. That's just a vehicle. The why and the reason is up to each individual person. And they can use real estate as a vehicle to accomplish that. So that's great. I think there's so much to point out there. I think about you moving from you mentioned Kiyosaki. So his second book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, moving out of the employee section into the investor section. That's huge. Where you can have control, and now you're, kind of sharing your story and helping other people find motivation to do the same thing, right? So I'm just truly inspired by your story. I love that you shared that. There's a lot to dive in there. I mean, especially investing out of state, like your local market was so expensive. You realize that, like, hey, you can't invest locally, one, because it's a high barrier of entry, and secondly, it doesn't just make sense. So how do you still invest in real estate? Well, you can invest in real estate out of state. And then, of course, how do you scale your portfolio? There's a lot to dive in there with questions we have for you. But I know Adam's got some prep for you. So
I just had that's the ultimate government move, to lay you off and then have to hire you in another place, as opposed to just transferring you over to a different thing. I mean, of course, there's going to be bureaucracy in getting you another job there. So I thought that was, as soon as you said that, I was like, that's a thing they would do.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that certainly, just with the U.S. government and the Air Force. But Dustin, let's dive into your story a little bit deeper for people that are either in the position where they may be fearful about uncertainty of future employment, they may dislike their current job, or they're just an investor that regardless is looking to get into real estate and like, hey, my local market's too expensive. So you got the first property in Ohio and closed on that one. And let's talk about the mindset of investing out of state a little bit deeper, because a lot of people, I mean, this is what we do. Personally, with my experience, I found that we did invest locally first. This was in North Dakota when I was stationed there, and it's an okay market. It's not a great market, but we realized, like, hey, there are better opportunities in different markets, and we can invest in different areas where we can have better cash flow, where we can have better opportunity. But it was a little daunting. It's like, how do we do that, right? We're not local. That's outside of our comfort zone. So for us, I know that was a big moment for us that allowed us to scale our portfolio and ultimately retire our career paths for my wife and I. But it was a hurdle to get over. So let's talk about your mental anguish, maybe, if you had any, of like, how did you overcome the obstacle of investing out of state, and how did you continue to stay on that track and make sure you were being successful investing out of state?
Yeah, and I love how you also brought up that term, scaling. So the way I did it initially, I would not be able to scale. Like, it wasn't working out well. But so when I first started investing, I knew, like, it was something that was on my brain. I had to do it. Now, a lot of us have seen these infomercials. So in 2006, I was watching TV late at night. I didn't know I was just working with the government. I saw a late night infomercial where it said, hey, we're real estate investors. We're gurus. We're coming to your town. We're going to give you a free 2-hour seminar. Just come and learn. So I was like, this is great. So I went to this 2-hour seminar, and it was all hype, all sales pitch. And they say, now run to the back and go give us thousands of dollars. I ran to the back and spent money. And it was for another seminar. And then that next seminar, it was another high pressure sales pitch for an $80,000 seminar. It was horrible. But I took what little they told me about, and I tried to read books, because there wasn't many. Actually, I don't think there were any podcasts back then. But I was reading books. I was trying to say, you know what? I know this is the path, and I know there's a way to do it. So, of all places, I said, I can't do it here. And I realized that if you just find somebody that can manage the property, and if you just do it right, more than likely somebody else will be able to manage the property. I didn't want to manage property, but here's a caveat to that. The first person that I called up a property manager and a realtor. First, I found the realtor, then I found the property manager, and my property manager, because I did it the wrong way, started stealing from me within 6 months. Now, this is the bad part of how you like, if you had best out of state, you can do it wrong. But I'll tell you how to actually do it right, or how I do it and how I scaled my business. So my property manager in 6 months started stealing from me, and so I had to do it right. Now, I've always been entrepreneurial in my life. In fact, I'm a real estate investor, but I'm actually more so is a business owner. I own 5 businesses now that make me money, and real estate's one of them. In fact, that's my river of income. All the streams of income from all the other ways I make money go into my river of income, which is my real estate investing. That's generational wealth that I keep. And so what I realized when my property manager started stealing from me was that I didn't even build a business. I just found a realtor, and they pointed me to a property manager. I said, okay, let's just do it. Not knowing or not realizing that I needed to build the business first. So when I did it the wrong way is because I just found somebody that said they had a pulse, and they said they were a property manager, and I just put them in charge of it, which was the wrong thing to do. Now what I do, and this is what I do everywhere, I think I invest in 5 cities now, but every single city that I invest in, I build the business first. And so I say that all the time. And this is how you then can scale the business. And because I realized that being a business owner, I started many companies, and it'd be like this. If you were to start a convenience store, a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all that good stuff, well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. So my first foray into it, bought a property. It was basically just like putting a box of candy bars in there. But this is what I realized when I had to do it right. So what you would do was you would build the business. You get the gondola. So there's shelving units that all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, like everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Then once the business is built, you have the right people in the business. Then you buy the inventory and put it into your business. Same thing with real estate investing. You build the entire business before you buy any inventory, and you're hiring experts. The experts are the ones that are going to be doing it for you. Just like if you build that entire business and you saw somebody walking across the street and say, hey, you look like you can manage my business. Come on in, manage my money, manage my employees, manage my inventory, manage my customers, manage my business. You would not do that. You would hire. You would basically interview many people and find the right people in the business. Now that's what we do in order to scale the business. We build a great business that has the right people. And what I love, my property managers tell me what areas of the city are going to be great to invest. Like even though I coach hundreds, if not thousands of students now how to invest, a student will ask me, Dustin, you invest in the city. Where's a great place? Like, you're the expert. I said, no, I'm not the expert. I rely on the people. Yeah, the people that live on the ground there, that do it day in and day out. Those are the experts. So when one thing, I realize it's more risky working for somebody else than investing myself. It's much more risky. So if somebody thinks it's risky to invest, I'm telling you, from my own personal experience, it's more risky putting your life in somebody else's hands. I'd rather hire experts that are relying on me to give them good business so that they can make money. So what I do is I then make sure that I don't buy a property unless I have a property manager that'll manage it. I have a contractor that'll be able to fix it up. I can be able to insure it. I make sure that everything in the business is working right before I buy that property. It'd be so bad if you bought a property and then, because this is the way gurus will tell you. They say, find an area of the country to invest anywhere in the country. This is what they told me, and I did it wrong. I did follow them and it screwed me up. But you run the numbers, make sure you're making $50 a month in passive income. Remember, this is 2006. So remember, they said, oh, it's going to appreciate. You're going to get appreciation. You're going to love that. I don't invest for appreciation, just for cash flow. They say, now, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, then find a tenant, and then find somebody to manage the property. Well, that's about backwards. If you do that, it'd be like this. And I've had countless people come to me and say, Dustin, I bought this house, got it all fixed up, spent thousands of dollars, and then I try to find a property manager, and I call around, and all the property managers are saying, I'm not going to manage that property. I'll get shot going there. Well, you don't have an asset anymore. You have a liability now. How much better, instead of calling, hey, property manager, will you manage the property I own? And they say no. How much better would be, hey, property manager, I've already been working with you. I'm looking at buying this property. I haven't bought it yet. Tell me about it. And they say no. Well, then you don't buy the property. You move on because they're the experts. They're going to tell you if it's the right place. But how much better? You say, property manager, how much will it rent for? What's the clientele like? What's the vacancy factor? What's the area like? And will you manage the property? And then they actually say, this is a good area. And they give you all the details. And good, I can move forward now. Same thing with realtors, same with wholesalers, same with turnkey companies. Like, we rely on the experts. They are the ones that are going to tell us, because I love being passive as possible. That's why I created my brand, Master Passive Income. I don't want to do any work. I want other people to do work and pay them well, and then I make money in the end. But that's how I scale my business, because I build a business, and the inventory, I just got to put another piece of inventory into the business.
We have a lot of people who have, you mentioned at the beginning, it took them 6 months to start stealing from you. We have a lot of people who, when they hear, passive income, they think way too passive. So how did you figure out, what keys or what clued you in to say, hey, these people are stealing from me? I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't like they literally didn't transfer money into your account for months because they weren't collecting rent, but how did you figure it out, and, what kind of clued you in?
Yeah. And I'll also add to that question, because how to figure out is one thing, but then also how to make sure it doesn't happen. And 3 words: systems, procedures, and processes. Just like any business, you have to have those. So for me, figuring it out that they were stealing from me, it was like expenses on a property management sheet that it got to me. Like, where's the receipt for this one? where's like the numbers aren't adding up. Like the math is bad. I see you have a receipt that looks like it was handwritten on a napkin. It's that those are clues if they're running a good business. If you hire the right business owner that's a property manager, they're going to have all these in place to where it is very transparent. It is like everything's accounted for. And so for me, I started getting these expensive. I mean, almost like a expense that literally they just made up. One, it was literally they said, oh, we had to replace the entire main drain going out to the front lawn, or to the main drain all the way to the septic or county sewer. And I said, what? You didn't even tell me about it. It was like $900. I was like, what in the world? I said, where's the receipt for that? Oh, look, I'll send it to you. And they write it up on a piece of paper and send it over. That is how I figured out, is when things weren't adding up. And another thing is if they're not they're not communicating very well. If they're not communicating very well, then something's wrong. But with that, in order to do it right, number one, you hire the right company. You interview. If I'm building a business, I'm interviewing at least 5, 7, 10 property managers until I find the right one that fits really well, where I feel comfortable with them. The good communication, they seem trustworthy on the phone. They sound like they know what they're doing, and interview them multiple times. But on top of that, when I hire them as my manager, I give them my procedures, my processes, the things that I want them to do in my business. I say, however you manage your business for other landlords, that's fine. Keep doing that. But for my business, I need you to do this. Like, let's say rent is due on the 1st, lay it after the 3rd. And right after the 3rd, you put a 3-day notice. And right after the 3-day notice is up, you start the eviction process. Like clockwork. We're going to be non-discriminatory. Everybody gets treated the exact same. And I want this process to happen every single time. Because just like if I stop paying my mortgage, the bank's not going to say, take a sob story. Oh, my son got in jail, which I've gotten that. Can I not pay my rent because my son was in jail? I had to bail him out? Like, no, you still have to pay your rent. Your bank's not going to be lenient on you. So we just have to treat it like a business, be non-discriminatory, treat every company or every person and every tenant the same. But that is how I figured it out, and then how I made sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's great. You shared a lot of good information there, Dustin. I think that just a few key points. Obviously, this is something we talk about a lot of, operating this like a business. I view each real estate investment as a business, which it certainly could have, right? I mean, legitimately, some of the real estate we own, it is its own LLC. It is its own established business from a tax, from a legal perspective. But from an operational thing, which is really what you're talking about, it certainly is treated like a business. You need to have the right people in place, right? That doesn't mean you need to be the property manager changing toilets, because more than likely your time is more valuable than that. And you probably won't be the best property manager if you're not, have a managerial background, but you do hire in the right people. And it's important to surround yourself, like build your team to operate the business. This would extend to real estate specific attorneys, CPAs, lenders to help you expand your business, insurance providers to protect your business, property managers to run and operate your business advisors and CEOs of the company, which will be you, but eventually maybe not you. So I love what you said there. And I also want to just reiterate the risk aspect, because so many people have this backwards, associating risk with investing, when really a lot of times I agree with you 100% that like complacency is risk. There's risk to everything. And if you're working for someone else, like that's a risk, right? What is the job security? You found yourself in a position where like you learn that immediately the hard way. But maybe some people haven't had to have that experience yet, but they could at some point, at any given point in time. So you always got to have that contingency plan. And I think a lot of people are looking to real estate to do that. But I mean, we're kind of talking about two different things here, which are a little bit conflicting. And so I want to hear your perspective on this, because we're talking about running and operating your business. We're talking about passive income. We work in the space of turnkey investing, where it's more on the spectrum towards passive, where you're tapping into an already established business. Like we've vetted a lot of the teams and to operate with, and you're tapping into that immediate business. And that's not perfect either. Like a lot of what you're talking about is managing a property manager. You still need to do that. But like a lot of what you're going through, someone may be listening to this saying, hey, I want to get into real estate. You're talking about passive income, but this also sounds like a lot of work, to get, what would you say to that person?
So the work comes, and unless you're working with a turnkey company like Rent to Retirement that's going to help you, they've already done a lot of vetting and make sure. I would suggest you also, just don't just take it word for them. Go ahead and interview everybody too, to make sure it fits you as well. That's what I suggest to do. But with that, making it passive, a lot of the work comes up front. It's 100%. Don't get me wrong. Just like you're starting any business, you're going to be working hard to make sure the business is going to run right. If you want completely passive, go buy a mutual fund. And you get your returns however you want, but you need to put a little bit of the work in. What I call it mastering passive income. I bought one property. That first property actually made me $317. That first check I got in the mail from my property manager after all the expenses, $317. I said, oh my goodness, I've literally mastered passive income because now I don't have to work. Like, my property works for me. I don't work my time for $1. I don't spend an hour and to get $1. I've now built a business that runs. So yes, 100%. If you are doing it on your own, you build a business, you get the right people in place. That's where you spend the bulk of your time, just like you're building any business. But now, I literally don't spend I'll tell you this. A lot of people have heard of the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Its premise is try to make your life so you only have to work 4 hours a week. But I think working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I don't want to work 4 hours a month. I maybe work 30 minutes a month on all of my properties, all the businesses that I have, because I've made it so that the other people are doing the work well. And if you have the right people in place, I don't even call it a team anymore. It's my business. Like, they're not a part of my team because they're contractors, or I actually hire people. They're my business. They are part of my business. They're either my employees or contractors. But with that, once you give them the systems and procedures and processes after you build the business, because don't get me wrong, it does take time. In fact, the students that I coach, usually it takes about a month to really vet everybody out, to really make sure you have all the pieces in place, you have all the expenses, you understand the area because your property manager and your realtors are giving you wise information. Usually it takes about a month, but then all of a sudden, property and deals start coming your way. I'll give you a quick example. I have a pastor that is in Sacramento, started coming to me for coaching. I was doing one-on-one coaching with him. He didn't have any money, like literally didn't have any money, but because, pastors don't make money, but he bought his house like 10 years ago. So he had lots of equity. So I showed him, and we got a home equity line of credit on his property. We built the business so that he can put that money in a place and to make money on that property. And so he used his equity out of his house, bought a house. I think it was Georgia, Atlanta, I think right around there. I can't remember exactly specific, but he bought the house, paid cash for it because he had the home equity. Then he refinanced it like 6 months later, pulled all the cash back out, and then paid off his home equity line of credit. So he has literally an entire house, no money, like that. This is no money down at all, like none of his own money that he had to work for. And then now he's multiplying that out over and over again because he's saving the cash flow from that property. He has his home equity line of credit all over again. Plus, he's an investor, so he's starting to find other, let's say, financing companies. But what happens is when you build the business, all you need, your job is to just find more inventory. You can hire other people. Like, I have VAs that find inventory for me as well. I have wholesalers send it to me. I go to like people like rental retirement that have properties. Like, you've already done the work. Let me just buy the properties from you. In fact, I love working with wholesalers because I don't care that they make money. If I'm making money, they did all the work, doing all those calls and spelling out letters. No, you got to be paid for your work. As long as the deal works for me, I'm going to buy the property. But what it comes down to, you build the business and then you let the people run the business. You always check them. But for me, it's like 30 minutes a month.
Yeah, that's great. And certainly to your point about like paying wholesalers or whoever else, like if the deal fits your goals, like why does it matter, right? Some people think of it like are in this mindset of this. And I think this comes from the traditional way of buying real estate with only through brokers and agents. But, real estate can be a win-win scenario for everyone involved, right? Like it depends on what your goals are. That's where the best deals are made. And if your goal is like long-term hold in a good area and you have positive cash flow and people did the work to provide that property for you so you didn't have to do the grunt work and positioned you to be successful, yeah, they should be compensated for that. They're providing a service and they're helping you meet your goals. But thanks for answering that question. I wanted to get your input on it, but I hate to break it to you, people. Real estate takes work, like one way or another, right? There's no such thing as truly passive income, in my opinion, because you always need to be managing your money. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get to a point like Dustin where it's massively passive and you are the master of passive income, but like you have to build it. You got to do in the work. Even if you're going to say the turnkey route, like you got to build your goals. You got to go through the financing, like you take some work to identify and do your due diligence, but you're ideally setting yourself up so you can reduce your time. Because a lot of people get into real estate and they do all this work up front and all of a sudden they find themselves like busier than they were before. They're buying themselves another job and no one really, like that's not the point. No one really wants to be in that position. My parents always said, Zach, you can work now, you can work later, but you're going to have to work. So, so it's like, I always tried to get ahead of the curve, even in school, just like getting good grades early on, so then I could relax a little bit, have less stress later in the semester or whatever. Same thing with life and investing. So thanks.
Totally agree. And yeah, I quit my job when I was 37 years old because I worked my tail off for 10 years. In fact, when I read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was, I was 27 years old. And in the book, Robert Kiyosaki talks about giving yourself a deadline to quit in 10 years. I'm like, that's a good idea. Let me do it. Like, I'm going to give myself a deadline. I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to make myself quit, even if I didn't get to it and it wasn't able to. It's a deadline. But I was blessed in 10 years, had enough properties to be able to quit. But what it really came down to is my goal was to make passive income. And as I started many other businesses too, trying to make passive income, but the easiest and one I made the most money with, and the one that I had less time, was just real estate investing. And what I love, you brought up the term, the win-win, but I also like to add the win-win-win. As a real estate investor, we need to try to help people. I believe real estate's not about properties. Real estate's about people. I believe business is not about a product. It's about people. Everything in his life is about people. If we can figure out a way to make a win-win-win all around for every single party involved, then that just makes life so much better for everybody. So let's say we're an investor, we want to make money. That would be a win if we made money on our properties. Well, there could be a seller that is really, really hurting, and they need a win. They need to we're not going to overpay for the property. We're going to make sure it fits our business model and fits our cash flow that we need and the price point. But who knows? They might have a fantastic deal for us, but it's helping them out. Like, they're winning as well. Same thing with the realtor or the wholesaler. They're winning as well. And same thing with the tenant that moves in. You have a decent property at a decent rent that they're blessed to be able to stay there. As long as we try to serve people, that is what's going to make life better. In fact, I found the more people I serve in my life, the better my life gets and the better other people's lives get. And as I strive to serve and serve and serve, my goodness, it just seems like opportunities just open up. And now I used to have a mentality that, the world's out to get me, or, like that the world's going to keep me down, like the world in general, like it's just so hard. Instead, I switched it and I said, you know what? Maybe the world is out to help me. Maybe the world is like, there's so many opportunities. So it's the same world. It's just a different mindset, looking for those opportunities instead of saying, man, I'm keeping myself, or the world's keeping me down. Like, no, the world's trying to help me. And then once I open my mind and change my mindset to where now it's abundance, instead of being a scarcity mindset or there's not enough, now having abundance, my goodness, the world is just literally opened up to so many opportunities.
Yeah, somebody's been listening to our podcast, knows about my win-win-win-win-win strategy when it comes to real estate investing. Tell me, how has your buy box changed for properties over the years?
I love that question. I've actually never been asked that question. So, well, number one, I love playing Monopoly growing up. And so I bought single family homes. Eventually now I actually have been blessed to take part in hotels. So I own hotels now as well as residential.
So you're literally trading the greenhouse for the red hotel or whatever it is.
When I had the opportunity,
4 of them and combined them into one, and now
there you go.
Now he's got a top hat.
The monocle, I need that. When I had that opportunity, I said, I'm doing it. I get to be a part of hotels. I played Monopoly. So it started for me in a very low, like D class area. Like, it's not even like a D plus or a C minus. It was D because I didn't know what I was doing. It's 2006. There was no podcast, no great podcasts like Rent to Retirement. No tier key companies that I could find. I mean, it was literally Wild West of everything. And so I bought this property really, really cheap. And now I've grown to where now, just like Monopoly, you trade up, or I don't actually sell properties. I just buy better and better performing properties. I still own the properties that I bought. I can give those to my kids. So I just hold on to them. But now he's getting into higher class, let's say C and B areas, and then also multifamily. And so my bread and butter is 4 units and below. That's what I love to do. That's what I love to teach and coach, because 4 units and below, it's so simple. Like, if anybody's ever bought a house to live in, you just find a realtor and a mortgage broker, and you put them together, you buy a house, and you live in it. It's so much, it's literally the exact same thing, but it's so much easier than you might think in order to create a business as an investor, because you have great podcasts like Rent to Retirement that are showing you how to do it, or turnkey companies that are showing you how to do it. You can absolutely do it. But for me, it's now changing that, like storage units. I'm trying to get into storage units. I have a couple that I could hopefully invest in. And on top of that, mobile home parks. Not the mobile homes themselves; those are little they just depreciate. But the park itself, but branching out, but becoming an investor of everything. But at the same time, here's one little caveat though: my bread and butter is residential, 4 units and below. I could do that all day. I could do it in my sleep. In fact, I wake up times. I just bought a house, and I wake up, oh man, I just didn't. Right? So I love doing that. But I also get with experts in these other areas, like let's say a multifamily. I don't want to manage a hotel. I don't really want to do. I just want to invest with them. So now I invest my money where it now runs itself with other experts doing the work, like working with Rent to Retirement. They're the experts. They're already built out the system. They have other investors that are buying from them. They know what works. They're going to help you. So I love working with experts that are going to help me do it right.
Yeah, we follow the same path. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I think that is a good path to start out in, is especially single family and small residential real estate. Residential real estate in those classes is the most predictable real estate class because it's human necessity. You're investing in housing, and people always need housing, especially if you're intentional on where you invest. For example, where there's a supply and demand discrepancy, and you want to be in an area where there's an undersupply of housing. That means you're going to likely have the house rented consistently and have demand. But we follow the same path, Dustin, of just, building our residential portfolio, eventually trading up, going through some 1031 exchanges, pulling out equity, reinvesting that, trading up to larger asset classes, and just growing and growing and growing. But a lot of people, I think, get the shiny object syndrome sometimes because there's so much information out there for real estate right now, where you can do this. There's a lot of different gurus still pitching different stuff, and give your money to me, buy this. You have to invest in this asset class. There's nothing else that you can do to make money. So there's a lot of noise out there when it's like the predictable path is just invest in the easy stuff, the predictable stuff. Let real estate do what it does. Invest in good locations, the residential real estate, let it do what it does. Grow over time, learn and cultivate your skills and your business during that time. And then if you want to tap into some other stuff, I mean, once you're a more experienced investor, then do that. I mean, would you agree that that's kind of a predictable path to follow and what you'd recommend for the aspiring investor?
100%. Now, everybody's going to be different. You have to figure out what your goals and risk tolerances and financial ability. You have to figure that out for yourself. And so, but for me, and what I find a lot of my students when they come to me, they love the idea of just continual income. And actually, so I have a conference called the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, and you guys are going to be at, which is going to be fantastic. But the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, we bring hundreds of investors together. And one attendee said he invests in single family homes, and he's a great investor in 60 plus properties. And he says, man, it's not very sexy, but I have, single family homes. I have 60 plus of them. I told him, I love unsexy, cash flowing properties. That's what I love. I love where I don't have to think about it. That doesn't do much other than make me money. So I personally love things like, because he's thinking, multifamily or, big land deals, like building, like that's to him seems sexy. But at the same time, my goodness, if I could feed my family and not work a job, that's all that matters to me personally. That's my goal. But at the same time, if I had a great job, I could still work. I could choose to work. In fact, I love serving at my church. I don't want to be a pastor, but I literally love serving. Now I don't even have to worry about work. I could just literally serve until my heart is, full. I don't even have to work for the church. I could just serve because I have so much money coming in from my properties. But my position is, if you get a base of income coming in, like a floor of income, because you have, let's say 10, 20, 30 properties, you then are able to have your life open up, and you have options. That's one thing that I love. In freedom, you have options. I love financial freedom, but I definitely agree with you on that.
It's cool to see your evolution, Dustin, of going through a challenging, and thank you for sharing your story with us, going through a challenging time of being laid off and then, taking the leap of faith to invest in real estate. Maybe not even in the same deal you'd buy today, but you did it. That's the main point. You did it, and you kept doing it and kept learning and applying your knowledge that you learn in growing your business. So it's cool to see you on the back. And a lot of people, at least that listen to our podcast, are in the journey, or they're just looking to start the journey. And they maybe have some concerns about is it the right time? We have high interest rates right now. And there's always going to be something that is going to be a distraction or a reason not to invest. So just kind of as we wrap up here, I mean, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on, or advice that you would share for someone that is they've been thinking about real estate. They get it. They're bought in. They want to do it. Or maybe they've had a bad experience and they're willing to give it another shot. But, what would you tell the person that is just sitting on the fence and they're getting the proverbial analysis paralysis or whatever, they just can't take action? What would you tell them?
I love this quote, or it's a proverb. When is the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. The next best time is literally today. Same thing with real estate investing. When's the best time to invest? Well, it was 20 plus years ago. The next best time is today. Now, people might be thinking, well, interest rates and prices and everything is so out of whack. What's going to happen? Well, here's the thing. There are times in the market where it's really easy as an investor to buy properties. In 2010, I was gobbling up as many as I could because I couldn't buy enough. I didn't have enough money to buy as many as I could because they were everywhere. Now it's a little harder because there are not that many. But here's the thing. Even though right now it's harder because there are not many properties out there, it's still absolutely possible. For me, it depends on every single deal that comes my way. Let's say you might be thinking, well, this price of this house is really, really high. The interest is high. I'm not going to make money in passive income. It's like, well, don't buy that house or offer it at low enough to where you can make money. Who knows? You might be helping out that couple. Maybe they're going through a tough time and they need to sell and they have plenty of equity and they're willing to take a little discount on it. You never know. But what I believe now, like literally today, is the best time ever to invest in real estate. So I want everybody to remember this saying. It's not wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and then wait. Over time, value goes up. Over time, rents go up. And some people might say, well, if we're having maybe a recession and people might be losing their job, won't rents go down? I'm like, well, let's think about this because I literally experienced this back in 2006. In 2006, I was kind of worried that my rents are going to go down. People will lose their job. The economy is getting bad. But what sadly happens first is people lose their homes. They have to foreclose. Well, what does happen to the pool of renters? Demand goes up. There's more renters because they are no longer owning a home. Very sad for them. But if I'm ready and I have properties for them, they're going to move in. And honestly, my rents went up in 2008. It was amazing. I was like, what in the world's going on? But it's because there's more demand and the supply is relatively the same. And so I believe right now is the best time ever to invest, and coming. It's going to be, I think, maybe somewhat close to like 2010, where it's going to be some really good prices on homes. But here's the thing. Same thing with surfing. I love surfing. And if you're surfing, you're on a board in the ocean waiting for a wave to come. Well, if you start paddling to get momentum after the wave passes you, well, you miss the wave. You're not going to catch it. What you need to do is you paddle before the wave gets to you so you get momentum so that you could then catch that wave. Just like learning, like all my students that come to me for coaching on how to do this right, how to build a business, they come because they see what's coming. Well, number one, they can buy now, 100%. But also what's coming, if there's a recession and there's blood in the streets, that's when people are selling. We need to be buying. And so we need to be ready. So get education, start working with Rent to Retirement, start getting ready to buy. And in fact, buy now, because you don't know, it might crash, it might go back up. We have no clue what's going to happen in the future. So right now is the best time to ever to invest.
Yeah, I think people have been waiting for the crash that they say is coming since beginning of 2020. Even before that, when prices were going up. I mean, we talk about it all the time. There's always a reason that you can find, if you're looking for it, not to buy a property. There's always going to be a reason out there for that. But if you look at it, there's also pretty much always a place where you can buy that will make sense on the long term. So really quickly, my last question for you is pretty simple. Talk about, you bought your first in 2006. You talked about buying in 2010. I know you were buying in the interim. How did you convince yourself to continue buying during the beginnings of the Great Recession, whenever, the world was going to hell in a handbasket and nothing was ever going to work again? Talk about that mindset, because the one thing as we went into COVID was a lot of people were saying, oh, this might be the Great Recession again. You invested through it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what's great too is I actually coach a lot of investors. And even if I'm not buying, I'm seeing what they're doing, and it inspires me because the big thing is I have 30 plus properties now, and I own hotels and other assets. And I'm like, I don't need to buy. Like, my goal of quitting my job and being financially secure has done, but I buy when a good deal comes up. In fact, when students, I don't know if I want to buy it, I tell them, I will buy it if you don't buy it. In fact, just by a coaching call like last week, there was a student who literally was going to be making, or is going to be making, because now he's going to buy it, $400 a month in passive income. It was a lower priced home, but it still got a lot of rent. It looks phenomenal. And I told him, if you don't buy it, send it to me. I will literally buy it. But now in the interim, like as I see that there are so many deals because I've coached hundreds, if not thousands of students now, I see that it really just depends on the deal that comes your way. And a lot of students, they'll ask the question like, Dustin, should I buy this or this or this? Like, should I just look for single family homes, or should I look for duplexes, or should I, they have the word or in their vocabulary. I'm like, take that word or out. It's not or, it could be a possible and, but it really just depends on the deal that comes your way. Just like I was explaining, if a deal comes and the numbers work, you're making passive income. Because in 2006, when I started investing, I made money in passive income. I was worried in 2008 with the crash, but I wrote all through that. And then I realized I'm still making a lot of money. I didn't care about appreciation because I care about passive income. I'll literally own these properties forever until I give them my kids. And then appreciation got stepped up basis, got a lot of great things. But with that, I've already seen 2006. So for me, I was pushing my students to buy. And now I have students literally quitting their jobs in as little as 2 or 3 years. And so it's just amazing that I've seen it with other people and I have experienced it myself. But really what it comes down to, you just can't be afraid, because when you start becoming afraid, you start having that fear set in, you start getting analysis paralysis. You just need somebody around you. Like you can start working Rent to Retirement if you want to work with me. I love working with my students, but you need somebody else on your side cheering for you, wanting you to succeed, and then you will be able to succeed because you have all the experience of other people. Like myself, I have all my experience, but then we've got hundreds of thousands of people that I've coached that now we're a part of a community now, and we all work together. So that's how I suggest, if you're going to get through this, if you really want to get into it, you just got to be around the right people.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate the time. I know you're successfully unemployed and everything, but we know you still have time, things you could be doing like serving at church. And it's wonderful that even when you're there, you're still working because your tenants are still paying you for that time. So really appreciate you joining us today. The link that for today, I believe, is in the show notes. So head on over there and see what's going on there. Hey,
mind if I give out to everybody a free course that is literally going to show them how to do it? So I love like all the stuff that I've shared, like building the business. I literally just want to see. In fact, my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. So I want to just give you a free course. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, to 33777, rental to 33777, I'll literally just give it to you. I've had countless people invest just by that course. You can even follow me on Instagram. I actually love getting DMs. Like you can just reach out to me, the Dustin Heiner, THE Dustin Heiner. And no, I'm not that arrogant. The Dustin Heiner is the only handle I could come up with, but the Dustin Heiner. Plus I also have my podcast, the Master Passive Income Podcast. That's literally just me. I rarely do interviews, like really rarely do interviews. It's just me coaching and giving out all this information for how people can invest in real estate. And what's great now, recently, I've been doing the podcast since 2016, I think, 2015, 2016. I have so many people that reach out to me saying, I invested just from listening to your podcast. So I bring them on the show so that they can share, hey, anybody can do this. And I know you guys completely believe that too.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, don't forget to email them to us. Zach and I will answer them in future episodes. Just email them to podcast@renttoretirement.com. That's podcast@renttoretirement.com. You can check us out at renttoretirement.com. You can see all our inventory. You can schedule a call with us to talk about your goals. You can even check out our academy where you can learn the real estate investing from the very beginning through, not the end because it never ends, but tax strategies, cost segregations, all of the things that you hear us talking about all the time. You can find that at renttoretirement.com. Again, Dustin, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to all our listeners. Thanks for taking the time to educate yourself today. And we'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.